Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're jumping into something pretty epic, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We're looking at these amazing text excerpts from Kings of Israel and Judah.
Right, from Elijah all the way to the exile. It's like, imagine cracking open this ancient scroll,
Yeah.
just packed with drama, miracles, politics, the whole deal.
Exactly. And our goal isn't just, listing events.
No, we want to pull out the really compelling stuff, the surprises, the lessons that still kind of resonate.
Mm-hmm. The why behind it all, the interplay between, God and human choices.
Yeah, leaders rising, falling, faith, folly. It's all in there.
And it sets the stage for so much later history. We're tracing those threads: prophecy, power, peril.
Okay, so let's dive in. How does this whole section kick off? It's pretty dramatic, right?
It really is. It starts right after King Ahab dies. Moab rebels against Israel. Standard political stuff, maybe?
But then Ahab's son, Ahaziah, the new king of Israel, he takes a bad fall.
Right. And instead of seeking the Lord, which you'd, hope he'd do.
He sends messengers to consult Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, a Philistine god.
Exactly. A major deity, often linked with disease or flies. It's a massive snub to Israel's God.
And that choice, it sets the tone immediately.
It really does. Because before we even get to Elisha taking over, we have Elijah stepping in.
The fierce prophet.
Yeah, and he makes it crystal clear. You don't go asking other gods for help when the Lord is right there. It really puts the focus on the king's responsibility. Who do you turn to?
So the angel tells Elijah, go meet those messengers.
And he hits him with that question. Is it because there is no God in Israel that you are going to get directions from Baal-zebub?
Oh, and pronounces his death right then and there.
Yeah. The message gets back to Ahaziah, but he doesn't, repent.
No, he sends soldiers, a captain, and 50 men to bring Elijah down from a hill.
And Elijah's response is just pure fire. Literally, if I am a man of God, may fire come down from heaven.
And it does. Twice.
50 men, then another 50. It's an absolutely stunning display of divine power. It shows the stakes.
Defiance gets a fiery answer.
But then the third captain, he does something different.
What does he do?
He comes humbly. He begs Elijah for his life and the lives of his men, doesn't demand, he pleads.
Ah, so it shows a contrast. Humility versus defiance.
Exactly. And the angel tells Elijah, go down with him, don't be afraid. So humility gets a different response, even from someone on the king's errand.
And Elijah goes down and tells the king face to face, you sought Baal-zebub, so you're going to die.
And he does. Ahaziah dies. His brother Jehoram takes the throne.
Wow. Okay, so that sets a pretty intense stage. And right after this, we get Elijah's departure.
Yes, one of the most famous scenes. Elijah's about to leave, and Elisha, his protege, is with him.
Elijah keeps trying to leave Elisha behind, right? At Gilgal, Bethel, Jericho.
Yeah, testing him, perhaps. But Elisha is absolutely determined. As the Lord lives, I will not leave you.
That shows real commitment. He knows something big is happening.
He definitely senses it. He's not just a follower anymore. He's ready for what's next.
So they get to the Jordan River.
And Elijah takes his cloak, his robe, strikes the water, and it parts. They walk across on dry ground.
Incredible. Shades of Moses.
Definitely. And on the other side, Elisha asks for that special measure of Elijah's spirit.
The double portion. What does that really mean? Just more power.
It's generally understood as the portion of the firstborn son, the heir. He's asking to be recognized as Elijah's successor, to carry on that specific ministry and authority.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Elijah calls it a hard request.
But he says, if you see me when I'm taken, it'll be yours. The seeing is key.
And
As they're walking and talking, suddenly chariots and horses of fire appear, separating them.
whoa.
And Elijah is taken up to heaven in a whirlwind, a great wind.
And Elisha sees it all. His cry, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. That's so powerful.
It really is. He's mourning his mentor, but also recognizing Elijah's role as Israel's spiritual defense, now gone.
So he picks up Elijah's fallen robe.
Goes back to the Jordan, strikes the water with the robe, and asks, where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?
And the water parts again.
Yes, confirmation. The power, the authority, it's transferred. Elisha is the successor.
But then those sons of the prophets, the other disciples, they see him.
They acknowledge the spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha, but then they insist on searching for Elijah for 3 days.
Even though Elisha probably told them what happened.
Right. It just shows, even people close to the action, they struggle to accept the purely supernatural. They want a body, some earthly explanation.
That's very human. Okay, so Elisha's ministry begins. What kinds of things does he do? It's quite a mix, isn't it?
It really is. Right away, he tackles practical problems. Like in Jericho, the water is bad. He throws salt in the spring in a new bowl and heals the water.
Simple, practical miracle. But then there's that incident with the boys from Bethel.
Yeah, that's a tough one. They mock him. Go up, Baldy. Possibly mocking Elijah's ascension, too.
And Elisha pronounces a curse, and bears come out and attack them. 42 kids.
It's shocking to us, but it seems to underscore the seriousness of disrespecting God's prophet, and by extension, God himself. It establishes Elisha's authority in a stark way.
Definitely makes a statement. But his miracles weren't all judgment, right? You mentioned the rains.
Oh, absolutely not. The range is incredible. He helps kings in warfare.
Like that time, Israel, Judah, and Edom are allied against Moab and run out of water.
Exactly. King Jehoram of Israel is despairing, but Jehoshaphat of Judah insists, isn't there a prophet of the Lord here?
And they find Elisha. He doesn't seem too impressed with Israel's king.
No, he basically says, if it weren't for Jehoshaphat, I wouldn't even look at you. But he calls for a musician.
Music. Why music?
It seems to help him enter a state to receive the prophecy. Then he says, God will fill the valley with water holes without wind or rain, and they'll defeat Moab.
It happens. The water shows up. Looks like blood to the Moabites. They get confused.
And Israel wins a great victory, so national level intervention. But then you have intensely personal miracles.
Like the widow and the oil.
Right. A prophet's widow, destitute, creditors coming to take her sons as slaves. Elisha asks what she has, just a small pot of oil.
And he tells her, borrow lots of empty jars from your neighbors.
Lock yourself in and just pour from your little pot into the big jar.
And the oil just keeps flowing until every single borrowed jar is full.
Miraculously, yes. Enough to sell, pay off her debts, and live on the rest. It's about provision, about justice for the vulnerable.
And the Shunammite woman. That's another really personal one.
A wealthy woman who shows hospitality to Elisha, builds him a room. He wants to repay her kindness.
His servant Gehazi points out she has no son and her husband is old.
So Elisha promises her a son, and a year later, she has one, just as he said.
But then tragedy strikes. The boy grows up, gets sick out in the field, and dies.
The mother's grief is palpable. She doesn't hesitate. She saddles a donkey and rides straight to Elisha on Mount Carmel. She knows where to go.
Elisha sends Gehazi ahead with his staff, tells him to lay it on the boy's face.
But nothing happens, so Elisha has to go himself.
He goes into the room, prays, stretches himself out over the boy's body, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes.
Twice, actually. The boy warms up, sneezes 7 times, and opens his eyes. He's alive again.
Just incredible. From national strategy to raising the dead.
It shows God's concern reaching into every part of life.
Now, the story of Naaman is maybe one of the most famous, the Aramean commander with leprosy.
Right. And the key info comes from this captured Israelite slave girl in Naaman's household. An unlikely source.
She tells Naaman's wife, if only my master would see the prophet in Samaria, he would cure him.
So the king of Aram sends Naaman to the king of Israel with a letter and huge gifts. The king of Israel freaks out, thinks Aram is trying to pick a fight. Am I God to kill and make alive?
Understandable reaction. But Elisha hears about it.
And tells the king, send him to me. Let him know there's a prophet in Israel. Confident.
But then Elisha doesn't even come out to meet Naaman.
No, he just sends a messenger. Go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River and you'll be clean.
And Naaman is furious. He was expecting, what, some big ritual, some hand-waving.
Exactly. He complains, aren't the rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? He's insulted. It's too simple to. Humbling.
His pride is wounded. It shows how status can get in the way.
Definitely. But his servants talk sense into him. Such wise servants.
They basically say, look, if he'd asked you to do something difficult, you'd have done it. Why not this simple thing?
It clicks. So he goes down, dips himself 7 times in the Jordan.
And his skin is restored like a little child's, completely healed.
He goes back to Elisha, a changed man, declares, now I know there is no God in all the earth except in Israel, offers gifts.
Which Elisha refuses to take. Why?
Probably to make it clear that God's healing isn't for sale. It's a gift of grace, not a transaction.
Naaman even asks for Israelite soil to take home to build an altar to the Lord. It seems like a genuine conversion.
It really does. But then, Gehazi, Elisha's servant.
Oh, yeah. He sees Naaman leaving with all those refused gifts.
And greed gets the better of him. He runs after Naaman, makes up a story about Elisha needing silver and clothes for some visiting prophets.
And Naaman gladly gives him even more than he asked for.
But Elisha knows. Through spiritual insight, he knows exactly what Gehazi did.
He confronts him. Is this the time to receive money? And then the judgment comes.
Naaman's leprosy transfers to Gehazi, a really stark consequence for deceit and greed, especially for someone so close to the prophet.
Wow. Okay, so Elisha isn't just about miracles. He's also like a national security asset.
You could put it that way. There's the story of the floating axe head showing concern for everyday problems again.
Right. One of the prophets loses a borrowed axe head in the river, and Elisha makes the iron float.
But then there's the strategic stuff. The king of Aram keeps planning secret attacks on Israel.
And Elisha somehow knows the plans in advance.
Yeah, he tells the king of Israel, don't go to this place. The Arameans will be there. Saves him multiple times.
The king of Aram gets furious, thinks he has a spy in his own ranks.
His servants tell him, no, it's Elisha, the prophet in Israel. He tells your enemy the words you speak in your bedroom.
So the king of Aram sends a whole army horses, chariots to Dothan, to capture one man, Elisha.
Elisha's servant wakes up, sees the army surrounding the city, and panics. Oh no, master, what shall we do?
And Elisha is completely calm. He prays, Lord, open his eyes so he may see.
And the servant suddenly sees the hillsides filled with horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. Divine protection.
That's an amazing image. But what happens to the Aramean army?
Elisha prays again, asking God to strike them with blindness. And he does.
So now he has a blind army on his hands.
Yes, and he tells them, this isn't the way, this isn't the city, follow me. And he leads the entire blind army right into the middle of Samaria, Israel's capital.
Incredible. The king of Israel must have been thrilled. He asks Elisha, shall I kill them, my father?
But Elisha says no. Would you kill those you've captured with your own sword and bow? Instead, give them food and water and let them go home?
Mercy. After they came to capture him.
Radical generosity. And the text says, so the bands of Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. Peace achieved through mercy, not just power.
That's a really different approach. But peace doesn't last forever, does it? There's another siege of Samaria later.
Yes, under Ben-Hadad of Aram. And this time it's brutal. Extreme famine in the city.
So bad there's cannibalism. The text mentions horrific things.
Truly horrific. The king is distraught, blames Elisha for the suffering, even vows to kill him that day.
But Elisha, again, is calm. He's sitting with the elders.
And he prophesies, by this time tomorrow, a seah of fine flour will sell for a shekel and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria. Basically, the famine will suddenly end, food will be dirt cheap.
And one of the king's officers, leaning on the king's arm, scoffs. Look, even if the Lord should open the floodgates of the heavens, could this happen? Total disbelief.
And Elisha tells him directly, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat any of it.
Okay, so how does the famine break? It's another unexpected twist, right?
Yeah. Completely unexpected. 4 lepers are sitting outside the city gate. They're starving. They figure, if we stay here, we die. If we go into the city, we die. Let's surrender to the Arameans. Maybe they'll spare us.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So they go to the Aramean camp at twilight.
And it's completely deserted. Tents, horses, donkeys, food, treasure, everything left behind.
What happened?
The Lord had caused the Aramean army to hear the sound of chariots, horses, a massive army. They panic, thinking Israel had hired the Hittites and Egyptians to attack them. They fled for their lives in the dark.
So the lepers find all this plunder. They eat, drink, hide some treasure, then realize.
We're not doing right. This is a day of good news, and we're keeping it to ourselves. So they go back and report it to the city gatekeepers.
The city rejoices, rushes out to plunder the camp. The famine ends overnight, just as Elisha said.
And that skeptical officer, the king puts him in charge of the gate.
Oh no.
And he's trampled to death by the desperate crowds rushing out. He saw the abundance, but didn't get to taste it. Elisha's word fulfilled, down to the last detail.
Wow. Even Elisha's death is remarkable.
It is. King Joash of Israel comes to weep over him when he's dying. Elisha has him shoot arrows out the window, symbolizing victory over Aram.
But then he tells Joash to strike the ground with the arrows. Joash only does it 3 times.
And Elisha gets angry. You should have struck 5 or 6 times. Then you would have destroyed Aram completely, but now you'll only defeat them 3 times. It suggests Joash lacked the full faith or zeal needed for total victory. A missed opportunity.
And then, after Elisha dies and is buried, that final miracle.
The most bizarre, perhaps. Some Israelites are burying a man, see a band of Moabite raiders come in.
They panic and just throw the body into the nearest tomb, which happens to be Elisha's.
And as soon as the dead man's body touches Elisha's bones, he comes back to life and stands up.
Incredible. A final testament to the power that worked through him, even after death.
It really seals his legacy as an extraordinary prophet.
An amazing run of prophetic power. But as you said, that power didn't always translate into the kings listening, did it? Let's shift to the kings themselves. Israel's story gets pretty rough.
It really does. It becomes this cycle of violence and ultimately exile. After Elisha's time, or overlapping somewhat, we have Jehu.
Right, anointed by one of Elisha's prophets to wipe out Ahab's dynasty.
Oh,
And he takes it seriously.
very seriously. A bloody purge. He kills Joram of Israel, Ahaziah of Judah, who was related to Ahab's family, has Jezebel thrown out a window.
Fulfilling Elijah's prophecy about the dogs eating her. Gruesome.
Then he has Ahab's 70 sons in Samaria executed. Then 42 relatives of Ahaziah. He's ruthless.
He also deals with Baal worship pretty decisively.
Oh yeah, he pretends to be a huge Baal devotee, calls for a massive gathering, a great sacrifice for Baal, gets all the prophets and worshippers into Baal's temple.
And then Hezbollah slaughtered, destroys the temple, turns it into a latrine. He ends organized Baal worship in Israel.
Which is a huge deal. The text commends him for it, but, and this is the crucial but.
He still didn't deal with the original sin of the northern kingdom.
Exactly. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit the worship of the golden calves at Bethel and Dan.
So he gets rid of Ahab's specific brand of paganism, but keeps the state-sponsored idolatry that split the kingdom in the first place.
Right, and that becomes the pattern. The Lord promises Jehu's line will rule for 4 generations because he dealt with Ahab, and they do.
Jehoahaz, Joash, Jeroboam II, Zechariah, but mostly the verdict is the same.
Mostly did evil in the eyes of the Lord, specifically continuing those sins of Jeroboam. And Israel suffers for it, repeatedly oppressed by Aram under Hazael and Ben-Hadad. There are moments of relief, divinely given saviors.
Like Jeroboam II's reign, it was long and prosperous. He restored Israel's borders.
Yes, fulfilling a prophecy by Jonah, actually, but it's a temporary high point before the final plunge.
Because after Zechariah, the 4th generation, Jehu's dynasty ends, just as promised.
And then it's just chaos. King after king assassinated: Shalom, Menahem, Pekahiah, Pekah, Hoshea. Rapid turnover, instability.
And increasing foreign interference. Assyria starts showing up.
Big time. Menahem has to pay a huge tribute to King Pul, who is Tiglath-Pileser III of Assyria. Later, Tiglath-Pileser invades under King Pekah, conquers parts of the North Galilee, Naphtali, and deports the people. The first major exile.
They're finally under the last king, Hoshea.
Hoshea tries to play games, stops paying tribute to Assyria, appeals to Egypt. Bad move. Shalmaneser V of Assyria comes down, besieges Samaria for 3 years.
3 years. The suffering must have been immense.
Unimaginable. Finally, Samaria falls. Assyria conquers Israel and carries the Israelites away into exile to Assyrian territories like Hala, Habor on the Gozan River, towns of the Medes.
The end of the northern kingdom. Why? The text is pretty clear, isn't it?
Extremely clear. It spells it out. All this took place because the Israelites had sinned against the Lord their God. They worshipped other gods. They rejected his decrees and the covenant. They followed worthless idols and themselves became worthless. They did not listen to his prophets. They persisted in all the sins of Jeroboam and did not turn away from them. It's a direct consequence of centuries of turning away.
And that resettlement you mentioned earlier with the foreign peoples.
Right. The Assyrians bring in people from other conquered lands. They don't worship the Lord. Lions attack them. So the Assyrian king sends back one of the exiled Israelite priests.
To teach them how to worship the God of the land, stop the lion attack.
Exactly. But the result isn't a pure return to the Lord's worship. It becomes syncretism. They worship the Lord, but they also serve their own gods from their homelands.
And that's the origin of the Samaritans, that mixed heritage and worship.
That's the historical root described here, yes. A distinct group with a form of Yahweh worship mixed with other traditions, persisting for centuries.
Okay, so that's Israel's tragic end. What about Judah, the southern kingdom? They last longer, right? They keep the Davidic line.
They do. But their story is also full of turmoil and near misses. Right after Jehu kills Judah's king Ahaziah, his mother, Athaliah, takes over.
And she's from Ahab's family, like mother, like daughter.
Pretty much. She tries to wipe out the entire royal family of Judah, all potential heirs of David, so she can rule unchallenged.
Kills her own grandchildren.
Horrifying, isn't it? But one infant son, Joash, is saved. His aunt Jehosheba, who is married to the high priest Jehoiada, hides him and his nurse in the temple for 6 years while Athaliah reigns.
The line of David preserved in secret, right inside the temple.
Exactly. Then, when Joash is 7, the priest Jehoiada organizes a coup with the palace guards, brings Joash out, crowns him king. Athaliah hears the noise, comes running, cries treason.
And Jehoiada has her taken outside the temple and executed.
So Joash becomes king. And as long as Jehoiada the priest is alive to guide him, he does well. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord.
He even organizes repairs for the temple, sorts out the funding.
Yes, important reforms. But the high places, those local shrines outside Jerusalem, they weren't removed. That compromise persists.
And after Jehoiada dies,
Joash falters. Officials persuade him to abandon the temple, worship Asherah poles. He even has Jehoiada's son Zechariah stoned when he prophesies against this. Eventually, he has to bribe Hazael of Aram with temple treasures to avoid an attack, and later he's assassinated by his own officials.
so even a good start can go wrong. There are other kings, some better, some worse. Amaziah wins against Edom, but then foolishly picks a fight with Israel and loses badly. But Ahaz, he seems like a real low point for Judah.
A definite turning point for the worse. The text says flat out, he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord as his father David had done. He embraces pagan practices wholesale.
Even sacrificing his own son in the fire. Following the detestable practices of the nations, God drove out.
Yes. Appalling. He worships other gods, builds high places, and when Judah is attacked by Aram and Israel,
Instead of trusting God, he turns to Assyria for help, to Tiglath-Pileser.
right, he sends a massive bribe, stripping the temple and the royal palace of gold and silver, basically makes Judah a vassal state of Assyria,
And worse, he goes to Damascus, sees a pagan altar he likes.
and sends a sketch back to the priest Yerujah in Jerusalem, telling him to build an exact copy and put it in the temple for the king to use for sacrifices. He shoves the Lord's bronze altar aside.
That's just blatant replacement of God's prescribed worship with foreign paganism at the very center.
It's a shocking betrayal, but then, thankfully, comes Hezekiah.
One of the best, a complete turnaround from his father Ahaz.
Absolutely. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father David had done. He launches major religious reforms.
Tears down the high places, smashes the sacred stones, cuts down the Asherah poles.
And he even destroys the bronze snake Moses had made in the wilderness, Nehushtan, because the people had started bringing incense to it, treating it like an idol.
Wow, removing even something with such historical significance because it had become an idol. That's serious reform.
He trusts God completely, even when Sennacherib, the powerful Assyrian king, besieges Jerusalem. Sennacherib's envoy mocks Hezekiah, mocks the Lord.
And Hezekiah goes to the temple, spreads Sennacherib's threatening letter before the Lord, and prays for deliverance. Isaiah the prophet gives him assurance.
And that night, the angel of the Lord goes out and strikes down 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in their camp. Sennacherib limps home defeated. A massive, miraculous deliverance.
And Hezekiah gets sick later, is told he's going to die.
He turns his face to the wall, prays, weeps bitterly, and before Isaiah even leaves the palace courtyard, God tells him to go back. Hezekiah is granted 15 more years of life.
And a sign. The sun's shadow going backward.
An incredible sign. But even faithful Hezekiah makes a mistake.
When the envoys from Babylon come, curious about the miracle.
Yes, he proudly shows them everything. All the treasures in his palace, his armory, everything in his kingdom, nothing held back.
And Isaiah confronts him afterward. What did you show them?
Hezekiah admits everything. And Isaiah delivers the devastating prophecy. The time will surely come when everything in your palace and all that your predecessors have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, and some of your descendants will be taken away, and they will become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon.
Oof. One act of pride, revealing his reliance on wealth and power, leads to the prophecy of the Babylonian exile.
It's a sobering moment. Even the best can stumble, with huge consequences.
And those consequences really bloom under Hezekiah's son Manasseh. If Hezekiah was one of the best, Manasseh is.
Arguably the worst. Reigns for 55 long years. He systematically undoes all his father's reforms, rebuilds the high places, erects altars to Baal, makes an Asherah pole.
Worships the stars, sacrifices his own son, practices divination and sorcery, consults mediums.
He even puts the Asherah pole inside the temple itself, and sheds so much innocent blood it fills Jerusalem from end to end. Just pervasive evil.
And this is when God declares Judah's fate is sealed, because of Manasseh.
Yes. The judgment becomes irreversible. God says he will wipe Jerusalem as one wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. Even future reforms won't be enough to completely avert the disaster Manasseh locked in.
That's heavy, the weight of past sin. But there is one more great reformer, right? Manasseh's grandson, Josiah.
Yes, Josiah becomes king at just 8 years old. And he's the complete opposite of his grandfather, maybe the most righteous king since David. He walked in all the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the right or to the left.
And during his reign, while they're repairing the temple, they find something.
Hilkiah the high priest finds the book of the law, probably Deuteronomy or a significant portion of it.
They read it to Josiah.
Yeah.
And his reaction.
He tears his robes, he's devastated. He realizes just how far Judah has strayed from God's covenant, how much judgment they deserve.
So he takes action, makes a covenant renewal ceremony before the Lord.
And then launches the most extensive religious purge Judah had ever seen, goes through Judah and Jerusalem, removing everything, pagan Baal altars, Asherah poles, star worship items, pagan priests, male shrine prostitutes.
He even goes north to Bethel, to the site of Jeroboam's original golden calf altar.
Desecrates it, burns bones on it, fulfilling a prophecy made centuries earlier. He systematically destroys the high places throughout the land. It's incredibly thorough.
And he holds a Passover celebration.
Unlike any Passover since the days of the judges who led Israel before the kings, a massive national rededication.
Josiah's reform is passionate, total. But it wasn't enough.
The text says, nevertheless, the Lord did not turn away from the heat of his fierce anger, which burned against Judah because of all that Manasseh had done to arouse his anger. Josiah's righteousness delays the judgment, earns him a personal promise he won't see the disaster, but the trajectory set by Manasseh remains.
So tragic. Such effort. But the past sins weighed too heavily, and Josiah dies relatively young.
Yes, killed in battle at Megiddo, trying to intercept Pharaoh Necho of Egypt, who is marching north.
And after Josiah, it's downhill fast for Judah.
Very fast. His successors, Jehoahaz, quickly deposed by Egypt, Jehoiakim, installed by Egypt, later vassal to Babylon, Jehoiakim, Zedekiah, all did evil in the eyes of the Lord.
Power shifts from Egypt to Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar. Jehoiakim rebels against Babylon,
which leads to Babylonian raids. Then Nebuchadnezzar besieges Jerusalem. King Jehoiachin is ruling by then, only for 3 months.
And Jehoiachin surrenders.
Yes. To save the city from destruction at that point, he surrenders. Nebuchadnezzar deports him, his mother, his officials, the leading soldiers, the skilled craftsmen, about 10,000 people to Babylon, and takes all the treasures from the temple and the palace, the first major deportation from Judah.
Nebuchadnezzar then installs Jehoiachin's uncle, Zedekiah, as king, a puppet king.
Right. But eventually, Zedekiah rebels too, against the advice of the prophet Jeremiah. Bad decision.
So Nebuchadnezzar comes back for the final showdown.
A long, terrible siege of Jerusalem. 18 months. Famine again becomes horrific.
Finally, the Babylonian army breaks through the city walls. Zedekiah tries to flee at night.
But he's captured near Jericho, taken to Nebuchadnezzar at Riblah.
And the judgment is brutal.
They kill Zedekiah's sons right before his eyes. Then they put out his eyes, bind him in bronze shackles, and take him captive to Babylon. A terrible end.
And Jerusalem itself, the temple.
Total devastation. Nebuzaradan, the commander of Nebuchadnezzar's guard, comes and sets fire to the temple, the royal palace, all the important houses, tears down the city walls, takes all the remaining valuable bronze, silver, gold items from the temple, everything Solomon built, gone.
And the rest of the people?
Exiled to Babylon. Only the poorest of the poor are left behind to work the land. It's the end of Judah as an independent kingdom. The Davidic monarchy gone, the temple destroyed. The exile is complete.
Even the remnant left behind under Jedaiah, the governor appointed by Babylon. That doesn't end well either.
No, Jedaiah is assassinated by a member of the former royal family, leading to more chaos and fear, and the remaining people flee to Egypt against Jeremiah's warnings. It seems like total dissolution.
But the book doesn't end on total despair, does it? There's that little postscript.
Right. Decades later, 37 years into the exile, Evil-Merodach becomes king of Babylon. And he releases Jehoiachin, the Judahite king who surrendered years earlier from prison.
Just releases him.
More than that. Speaks kindly to him, gives him a seat of honor higher than the other captive kings in Babylon, gives him new clothes, and a regular allowance for the rest of his life.
It's not restoration, but it's something. A flicker of hope.
Exactly. It's a small sign of favor, a reminder that God hasn't completely forgotten his people or the Davidic line, even in the midst of judgment and exile. A potential seed for the future.
Wow. Okay. What an intense journey. From Elijah's fiery chariot to the ashes of Jerusalem, we've seen incredible prophetic power, terrible human failings, massive historical shifts.
We really have. And connecting it all, you see these themes playing out again and again. The immense impact of leadership, for good or ill. The way societies cycle through faithfulness and rebellion. And God's persistent call, his warnings, his patience, but ultimately also his judgment on persistent sin.
So reflecting on all this for us today,
Yeah.
what stands out? What are the big takeaways from this whole sweep of
Oh,
history?
great point. No. The link between national choices, particularly leadership choices, and national destiny is unavoidable, isn't it? How ignoring the foundations of justice, covenant, faithfulness, it has consequences that build over time.
Okay, so here's something to think about. These stories show kingdoms repeatedly ignoring the core principles that were supposed to sustain them, even when they saw miracles, even when they had prophets warning them. Where might we today be ignoring foundational values or warnings in our own communities or societies? What sins of Jeroboam, those compromises we barely notice anymore, might be setting a trajectory we don't intend? And conversely, what does the humility of that third captain or the repentance of Josiah tell us about the possibility of change even when things look bleak?